Hi, I'm Ben, and this is the second film for education support that we're putting together, and I'm going to be talking today about dealing with grief and loss. Okay, so what is the nature of our grief and loss at this time? A lot of people, I think that's the first thing to talk about, because a lot of people will be feeling loss and certainly grief around these corona times, and there are certain things that you might be experiencing that grief and loss around. Certainly loss of your ordinary life, loss of social contact, which is something which is very acute for you guys in education, with pupils, colleagues, and the wider community. You've lost that sort of face-to-face connection there. Loss of development in the kids and their results. You know, that's a big thing, obviously, for teachers and for the kids as well, of course. Loss of exam results. Or great results. You know, obviously the exam boards have waived this year's exams, so that's going to affect our students and teachers in that, you know, they will have fixed them at your mocks and what have you, but it will have robbed you of that sort of joy of getting students to that place. NQTs, newly qualified teachers, may also feel that they've missed out on a proper conclusion to their training. And that, you know, that might be a bit problematic. And of course, we shouldn't forget that there's going to be the inevitable loss that many of you will experience when you know, if you lose loved ones to the coronavirus. And in these circumstances, it can be particularly difficult with the necessity of handling grief at a distance. You know, this thing about you can't go to funerals, you're not allowed to be there, etc., is really problematic for grieving, because grieving, of course, is a time when we come together. So we're going to produce a separate video on bereavement to specifically explore some of those issues, specifically about grieving in a pandemic. Okay. So there are different ways to manage loss and grief, and there are a number of very well researched models, but I just wanted to focus on a really, really good one by a grief and loss expert called Dr. William Warden, a psychiatrist, who's written some great books for therapists like myself and clients indeed on dealing with loss and grief. And he talks about being aware of 4 phases of grief and doing the 4 tasks of mourning. And I think that really these can be adapted very well to what's going on at the moment. So let's break them down. So the 4 phases of grief. Number 1 is numbness, okay? And this is where the defense mechanism immediately following loss kicks in to protect you psychologically. It's the same really as physical shock. It's the same sort of thing. It's there to protect you. And in this sort of period of time, denial can be very prevalent, okay? For many people working in education, the first couple of weeks of lockdown were spent working around the clock to figure out how to keep schools open, develop distance learning resources, and in some ways that busyness may have supported numbness, which of course allows us to not engage emotionally with the impact of the pandemic, okay, and that potentially then could lead to storing things up further down the line. Okay, so numbness is the first phase. Second phase of grief, searching and yearning, or sometimes called pining. And this is where you want the old ways to return, okay? What will be the new normal, for instance? And there are many emotions incorporated into this second phase, which include things like weeping, anger, confusion, guilt. You know, many of us will have been experiencing these things over the last month or two. And for educators, for instance, the Easter holidays would have normally been a time to take stock, to step back, relax, you know, prepare yourself for the next term. But this Easter has really been all about readjusting and thinking about what might be next. For instance, you know, everyone will be behind when schools finally do return. Teachers, kids, everyone will be behind, okay? So many will have been comparing to that, the old way, last year when you could chill out, and maybe pining for that again. And that is, absolutely to be expected. The third phase of grief is disorganisation and despair. Okay, and this is where withdrawal and disengagement may occur. Apathy might come into the mix here. I don't care about it all. Despair might increase. Watch out for your normal routines going out the window. Of course, they will have done anyway, but just, even more so. Education support, many noticed that returning to work after the Easter bank holiday weekend was really tough. And I've got to say, I noticed it when I came back to being a therapist and to doing my work. It was really tough coming back into that. Many people felt flat and struggled to get going with a normal week, and educators may well be experiencing that after this Easter break. So that's disorganisation and despair. And then the fourth and final phase of grief is reorganisation and recovery. Okay, a return to a new normal, because we must be honest, it is unlikely, I would suggest, that we will go back to the old normal. Okay, so you return to a new normal where the adjustments have been made, your energy levels come back. You might still be sad for the loss of the old ways, or maybe loss of people, but your desire to get back to something increase. Okay, and it happens at our own individual pace that we adjust to this new normal. Okay, and find a meaningful contribution where we can make things happen again. Okay, and that, be that through distance learning, feedback, development of new resources to support pupils to transition back to school, or helping maintain the sense of community in our dispersed school environment. There's a number of ways where that recovery might be happening and might well happen in the future. And the thing to really stress about these four phases of grief is that they are not necessarily linear. One, they might be experienced at different times by different people, and they certainly will be experienced at different paces by different people. And just bear that in mind and give yourself time to go through those phases, and note that everyone grieves in their own way and at their own pace. Okay, so that's really important. So the 4 tasks of mourning, okay, are as follows. Number 1, accept the reality of the loss. Don't deny or distract from it, as that will only prolong things. Talk to your loved ones about how you feel. Don't suffer in silence, okay? People have different levels of loss. A loved one maybe, job security, social connection, job satisfaction, sense of purpose. They all matter, okay? Loss is loss. We all experience and will react differently, okay? Number 2, experience the pain of the loss. This is really important. Maybe the most important one of the whole lot, actually. There's something really important about allowing yourself to sit with the painful emotions. Now, teachers, you guys are very good at getting on with it, doers. And it's important to sometimes take a step back from the doing and just to sit with, just to be. So, less doing and more being. And that can enable you to get used to that. The feelings won't go away because you ignore them. That's the main thing. If you are feeling sad and upset about what's happened, the feelings don't just go away because you ignore them or shove them under the carpet. So allow expression of those feelings, whether it be anger, sadness, guilt, anxiety. Talk to people and seek support. That's the second one. Number 3, in the task of mourning, adjust to the new environment. Okay, so do new things. Try not to hold on to the old memories too long, as it may prolong the process. Okay, maybe think what other things that you can do that aren't focused on being an educator. I know that being an education can be all encompassing. My partner was a teacher, but maybe there are other things that you can do now that aren't wholly focused on that. And be mindful that the new environment doesn't have the same rules as the old environment. So an example might be hours worked. It's okay to not be working normal school hours like you were before because of the situation. A lot of you are looking after kids, family, there's other stuff going on, and life has to happen. Okay, and so make those necessary adjustments. And the fourth task of mourning is when you are ready, and that is the most important thing about this one, when you are ready, when the time is right, withdraw the emotional energy and from the thing that you've lost and reinvest it in other things and other relationships. Okay, so this is not about moving on and forgetting about it. This is about, there is this cache of emotional energy located with the thing that we've lost, and at some point we need to bring back most of that energy and place it in other relationships, in other things that we're doing. Doesn't mean forgetting about the thing that we've lost though. That's really important. Okay, we need to make that shift so that we can renew ourselves and make those reinvestments. And always be kind to yourselves. Final thing that I'll say about the task of mourning. And talk. Continue to communicate and connect. However you do that, whether it's through Zoom, house party, telephone, going for a jog with someone in your household, whatever it is, continue those or walk even with someone in your household, continue those connections, even chatting to the person at the supermarket till, okay? Colleagues, friends, loved ones. So to conclude, remember to recognize when you and others are going through the phases of grief, and be kind and patient with yourself and others, and allow yourself to complete the task of mourning. So be aware of the phases and do the tasks, okay? And always remember, accept uncertainty and understand that any distress you're feeling is entirely normal in these circumstances. You don't need to be embarrassed or ashamed of your feelings. You don't need to be strong all the time. That's something that is very true often of teachers, and certainly of the leadership team, the senior leadership team. Sometimes vulnerability is strength, okay? And acknowledging vulnerability is strength. So don't ignore your feelings. Real strength comes from allowing yourselves to feel, process, and honor the experience that you're having. If we didn't love our work, our colleagues, our friends, family, our school, college, university, and community so much, then I guess a lot of us wouldn't be feeling so bereft. So this is entirely normal now, really is. So remember, if you want to talk to us, the helpline is staffed by qualified and skilled practitioners. This is available to you night and day. You don't need to even necessarily be in crisis. Maybe you just want to talk about how strange all of this is, okay? Details will be coming up. And so finally, I just say to you all, stay well and stay safe. Thank you very much.